going on, everybody? It's your buddy, it's your pal Spaz Phoenix, and yes, it is back. NXT Rewind is back. No, don't ask me how often this is going to happen. Don't ask me how regular these pods are going to be. Don't even ask me if this is going to be a one-off, because I really don't know. Didn't really have anything else to do in the next little while. WWE last week, this week, whatever. I don't know when I'm actually going to post this. I'm not going to post it the immediate day that I'm recording it. I'm going to save it. I'm going to put it in the can, as they say, and I'm going to release it at an appropriate time. But I haven't done one of these for a while. I need something a bit different. I need some old school NXT in my life. We've got, in the real news right now, I don't know, why not? Why the hell not? For the record, I'm recording this on September 23rd, 2023. I'm sure it'll go up within the month. But as it sits right now, we've got releases to talk about. We've got releases that people are happy about, which is really strange. The TKO merger has just happened in the past week or so as I'm recording this. You know, those other guys over on the other side, I've really got no reason to want to cover whatsoever. So what do I do? What do I come back to? I did this series. I started this series in the pandemic because I needed something positive. And what is positive? Black and gold NXT. So I've brought back NXT Rewind. Who knows for how long? Who knows if you guys will even enjoy it? It's no longer videos because, as you guys know, all my stuff is just podcasts now because I'm lazy, quite frankly. And looking back on some of the videos that I did that were videos, some of those didn't need to be videos, did they? Anyways, if you go along in the chronology, we do have 5 before this one. This is NXT Takeover Unstoppable. The date was Wednesday, May 20th, 2015, I believe. Yes, 2015. The location is obviously Full Sail University in Winter Park, Florida, with the very, very odd and repetitive attendance, according to Wikipedia, of 400 plus. So do with that what you will. The commentary team is Rich Brennan, Corey Graves, and Byron Saxton, which is not a horrible team. Rich Brennan looks like mini Michael Cole. I'm saying it now. I said it at the time. Corey Graves was finding his feet as a commentator, and Byron Saxton gonna Byron Saxton, and that's just fine. The music theme for Unstoppable was Unstoppable by Motion in White, which is fine, because up until this point, because these were still happening during the week as sort of elevated episodes of NXT, they just used the NXT theme a lot. That song that I still, for the life of me, don't know the actual name of. I think it's called Comin' For Ya. I've never looked it up. I'm bored. Sorry, I should say lazy, not bored. If I was bored, I could have looked it up. But it's a gimmick at this point that I don't know what that song is actually called. There's nothing wrong with that, but a pay-per-view or something that's supposed to feel like a pay-per-view should feel different. You're in the same place, something has to be different, and it's not a bad song. And hey, remember when WWE and wrestling in general had good rock music associated with it? Now, news and takeaway worthy notes. I don't know why I've struggled with that so much. This was the last takeover in Full Sail before we ventured out to Brooklyn. I really badly want to make a joke that I started this series during COVID when we were all locked at home, so all the takeovers that I reviewed up until now were also locked up at home, but I don't know how people would take that joke, to be perfectly honest with you. After this, they would leave the nest, so to speak. They would go to Brooklyn for TakeOver Brooklyn, where the Barclays Center sort of became the unofficial home of NXT for a long-ass time, or at least that's how it felt. Anytime they went to Brooklyn, it felt like WrestleMania. Does anybody disagree with me on that at this point? Now, it wasn't the complete end of it, because they would go back and forth for a little bit. They would do one in Full Sail, then one out, and then one in Full Sail, and one out. We have 2 more after this in Full Sail. One is Respect, that took place in October of 2015, and then Take Over the End, or Take Over the End of the Beginning. They played with that title a lot. That took place in June 2016. Now, originally, the reason that takeover was called The End was because it would be the last takeover to take place in Full Sail at the time. Now, flash forward 4 years, and they would have to return to Full Sail for TakeOver for In Your House in June 2020 and all the takeovers after that because of the ongoing global bastard, the global pandemic that was taking place at the time. I will say, right now, right off the cuff, this series will not cover the crowdless takeovers, because I'm not gonna watch the crowdless takeovers. I know we had the rise of Pat McAfee and a couple of other interesting things that happened in that time, but nobody wants to watch pandemic wrestling. Least of all me. Least of all because I've chosen this period in time of NXT because it's my favorite period in time of any wrestling in recent memory. What do we got? We got the dark match, which isn't on the thing, so I can't really tell you much about it, but I can tell you that the dark match was the Vaudevillains taking on the Mechanics. Now, you know who the Vaudevillains are. Matthew Raywalt has gone to become quite a good commentator over on Impact. I have no idea what Simon Gotch is doing other than being mad about Enzo Amore on YouTube. And the Mechanics, if you don't know, would go on to be the Revival, would go on to AEW to become FTR. I almost said DIY there because all the acronym names are annoying. The opening video is a lot of what they did around this time. It's a hype package for this show, but also a hype package for NXT in general. A lot of big names. Say what you want to about these names or not. Scott Hall, Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, Stephanie McMahon, John Cena, a couple of others that I didn't catch because they were voiceovers and I'm not 100% sure. But it was more about hyping what NXT was than hyping the show you're about to watch, which made sense because if you're seeing the beginning of the show, chances are you're already watching the show. We had a lot of footage from outside. They used to do this really cool shit at Full Sail. They spent a lot of time outside. They spent a lot of time outside with the fans. They spent a lot of time talking to fans like as they were coming in the building, and I kind of missed that in the Performance Center era. Don't get me wrong, there's things to enjoy about current NXT. I didn't like 2.0 at all. I thought that was really, really ridiculous. This opening video package got you hyped up for what the show was, which is reflective of what I've said in previous editions of this particular series. The difference when you watch an NXT show, and I think you kind of get it with a bit with Impact today, because Impact right now is not huge, but it's got that little engine that could mentality that TNA has always had. People that came to NXT week to week, people that came to NXT takeovers specifically, came there to have a good time. They were not the typical daily wrestling fan of today that walks into a building, crosses their arms, and says, "Okay, impress me." But those fans were like, "I'm here because you impress me. I'm here because you have a good time." And you can feel it in this crowd. Yes, looking back now, Full Sail felt like home when you were watching Black and Gold NXT back in the day. Looking back on it now, is it small? Does it have some of the downsized elements that we have in the PC era today? Yes. Looking back on it with hindsight, NXT, week to week, I'm sorry, you guys know me when I used to review it every single week. If I didn't do anything else in the week, I would review NXT. Because it felt like the biggest place in the world. It felt like they crammed the entire world into Full Sail at least once a week, because that was the atmosphere you had at the time. You don't quite have that now. What you have is we got some silly stuff, we got some serious stuff. Come for the silly stuff, come for the serious stuff. Let's all have a good time. It's never been the way it was back here. I'm not gonna lie. That's it. That's all. But the video package is great. Getting the names in there. I don't care. Scott Hall, obviously legend. Rest in peace and all that sort of thing. Hulk Hogan is a big name. Ric Flair is a big name. I don't care if you don't like them. They are the forefathers of pro wrestling. John Cena's getting to that level now. Stephanie McMahon lending some credence from the McMahon family. Hey, this is a really good thing. You should check it out. Also, not going to hurt my feelings whatsoever. We're in the TKO era now. The Vince McMahon and the McMahon family, they don't even own WWE anymore. Who thought we would ever say that? That's not what we're here to talk about. Tonight, though, let's talk about the first match. The first match is Finn Balor versus Tyler Breeze in a #1 contendership match for the NXT Championship. Now, something to note here. Initially, this was supposed to be a triple threat match, including Hideo Itami, but in real life, Hideo Itami had injured his shoulder. On the pre-show, we saw like some fan video. They did a lot of this stuff as well that I thought was really cool. Fan video of people finding Hideo Itami in the parking lot. He'd been injured. They kayfabed him an attack in the parking lot because, as we all know, the NXT parking lot, whether it's Full Sail, whether it's the PC, whether it's anywhere else, is always the most dangerous place to be. Now, this started off with an interview with Enzo and Cass, and then it gets distracted away to Hideo Itami. So we don't see who attacked him, but we do see Kevin Owens, who's got a match coming up later on tonight, walking by, shaking his head and saying, "Oh, isn't that a shame?" Two of the people that are looking over Hideo Itami as they wait for help, I believe, is the Revival, are the Mechanics, are, FTR, if you want to call them that. But I can't tell because it's like 5 seconds on screen and gone. So I could be very, very wrong. So no Hideo Itami in this match, which is fun. I liked Hideo Itami too. There was the obvious, he's a bit Scorpion, but that's fine. Tyler Breeze, Finn Balor is your opening match, and look at the guys involved. I mean, Finn Balor, now clearly a star. Tyler Breeze, I don't know what Tyler Breeze is doing right now, if I'm completely honest with you. I know he does some online stuff, and somebody told me he does like real estate in his spare time. Tyler Breeze probably was never going to main event a WrestleMania, but that doesn't matter to this crowd here. Breeze does his supermodel entrance. He doesn't have the selfie stick yet that he would become more known for, but he did have the walking out with the cell phone. He had a special entrance with a bunch of other supermodels that weren't really dressed as supermodels. They were just dressed as other versions of him, but they all had their phones out doing their selfies in the entrance, and he stops to sort of photobomb on each one of their selfies, which is entertaining, but I'm sorry, my bias swings the other way when the lights go out and you get that entrance. It is the Demon Finn Balor. Finn Balor right now is part of the Judgment Day. Judgment Day is probably the coolest thing going on main level WWE right now, with the Bloodline clearly falling apart and with Cody Rhodes also being a thing over in the corner, unfortunately. Finn Balor, as he is right now, as part of the Judgment Day, super banter, love the success that he's having. It looks like he's having a great time with Rhea and Priest and Dominic. Couldn't be happier for the guy. I don't like the remix of his music. I don't like the remix of Rhea Ripley's music, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point. I don't like the remix of what's his name, Damian Priest's music. I don't like, the only one I don't mind, because it didn't really change that much, was Dominic Mysterio, but that's fine. My point being, after we've had the Judgment Day for so long, now, for me to go look back then to 2015 to the Demon entrance, when the Demon entrance was still a relatively new thing. And let me be clear about this. The crowd loves Tyler Breeze. You know, the whole Breeze is gorgeous chants were a thing. Everybody was in on the gimmick. He's obnoxious, but he's kind of like our obnoxious guy that we like hate to love, love to hate. Very, very minor version of the love to hate relationship that you see with somebody like an MJF in AEW. I would go that far. On a smaller scale, let me be clear before the MJF fans come at me. They like Tyler Breeze. They go wild for Finn Balor and the entrance. And I'm sorry, when that entrance hit, because it's not just the music, because the music was good before it got remixed, but it's the extra that they put into that entrance when he was the Demon, when the lights went out for a second, and slowly the red light comes up, and slowly you hear that heartbeat that came in before the music, similar to what they did with Taz back in the day, and then the music, and then the smoke, and then all the body art, and then the whole hit the high note, arms out, bright white light before it goes back to dark and black and red and all that kind of thing. The way they presented the entity that was Balor's demon side was one of the coolest things they ever did. I want to say on par with the very first time I saw the Karrion Kross entrance, but people shit all over Karrion Kross, and then they still don't know what to do with him on the main roster today, so we don't really need to talk about that. But let's talk about the match instead. The crowd is up. Finn Balor and Tyler Breeze have the crowd up and in the palm of their hands before they even start, but collar and elbow tie up and a headlock by Balor. A quick pin attempt. Breeze tries to hide in the ropes for a bit and catches a cheap shot by Balor for his trouble. Breeze gets a headlock of his own and turns it into a headlock takeover, pun intended, and a dropkick by Balor. Dueling Breeze is gorgeous, no he's not chance at this point. The Tyler Breeze gimmick as well, it's knowingly campy, it's knowingly here's somebody that you love with a gimmick you should hate, but you can't hate it because it's so good. For that, I would encourage anybody, and yes, this is me talking about Destiny for a second. Check it off your Spaz Phoenix bucket list, it's fine. For anybody that doesn't know him, look up a young Canadian talent by the name of Jesse Bieber. And the gimmick is exactly what you think it is. Check it out. It's worth checking out. And if you're in the Toronto area, if you're in the GTA, if you're in the Southern Ontario area, please come down and check out a Destiny show, because Jesse Bieber's probably going to be on there, and you're going to see what I mean. There's a lot of Tyler Breeze. We should hate this guy, but we kind of love him in that as well. Anyways, coming back to the show, coming back to the topic of conversation today, both trade punches and Breeze eats some turnbuckles, and how. Breeze hits a triangle dropkick to take Balor off the apron, stomps by Breeze, mudhole in the corner, and he twists him out of the corner into a neckbreaker. A snapmare into a leg drop by Breeze, grounding Balor with a sleeper. A sunset flip and a low dropkick by Balor. A series of clotheslines, a corner chop, a dropkick, and a double stomp by Balor, all in quick succession. You know you love to see it. Step up Enziguri in the corner by Balor, and a sling blade. Supermodel kick by Breeze, and another mudhole stomp. He loves the mudhole stomp, doesn't he? They do the whole double dueling finishers thing. The beauty shot misses and the double stomp misses in quick succession. Balor hits the Balor eats an exposed turnbuckle and eats a beauty shot by Breeze and gets a near fall. Breeze tries to leave, tries to head up the rampway. Balor sneaks around the side of the rampway and jumps across with a hard elbow shot on the rampway. Then he climbs up to the stageway, and the crowd starts chanting, "Please don't die," which is nice, because we like Balor. We don't want Balor to die. He comes off of there. I think it's supposed to be some kind of crossbody, but it comes off as just sort of like a forearm clothesline type of thing. It does the job, gets him back into the ring. John Woo dropkick in the corner, coup de grace, and Finn Balor is your winner and your #1 contender at 11 minutes and 30 seconds. Now, a quick note to say that Balor would go on to get his title shot, not at a TakeOver, but at WWE's Beast in the East pay-per-view, the one that was headlined, obviously, by Brock Lesnar, and he would win the NXT Championship at that event and go on to defend it at NXT Takeover Brooklyn, which we will talk about next time. That being said, that's way in the future. This was a hell of an opening contest, and it didn't drag. The one thing I will say about these being on weekly television, they had to fit that 2-hour mark, and they never really broke too much from that. As I say, hats off to Finn Balor. Obviously happy for all his success. Don't know where Tyler Breeze is today, but hats off to him as well. Hell of an opener. Before we get into our next match, they do a little bit of sort of PR, hey, isn't this cool stuff. They show in the crowd. They did this a lot in the early days of TakeOver. Hey, take a look at who's in the crowd. Usually it was wrestlers that were coming up soon, or that were being considered by the NXT whatever. But occasionally they would get somebody with a little bit of notoriety. And sitting next to Stephanie McMahon is the Mountain from Game of Thrones, who's gigantic and would have been hilarious if he had come in as a developmental talent in NXT. What we got after that was a video package of NXT touring. I guess they had just started touring outside of Florida. They had done a tour of Philadelphia and Albany, and it's just a bunch of fan reactions, a little bit of a couple quick shots of the action in the ring and the crowd obviously responding, a couple fans losing their shit in reaction to getting to see NXT for the first time, wrestlers obviously talking about it. Unfortunately, Sasha Banks was heavily featured in this, along with a lot of other wrestlers that didn't get nearly as much time in this little video clip. The one that stuck out to me, because I keep forgetting that he was ever in NXT or WWE as a whole, is Sami Callihan. I forget that Sami Callihan came to NXT for a little bit, and he had, the Solomon Crow, like the original hacker gimmick. It would be really interesting to see what Sami Callihan would do in NXT or WWE right now. I don't know. It's really gimmick heavy. The Ohio versus everybody shtick that he does in... I was going to say in Impact, but in everywhere. I've seen him at Destiny as well. Check it out for Spaz Phoenix Bucket List. Again, it's fine. Really, if you look at a bunch of stars that were like, oh yeah, they're definitely an NXT person, not definitely an NXT person, then Sami Callihan pops up and they're, oh fuck yeah, he was there too, wasn't he? And I focus on that because I don't really know what to say about the next match. It wasn't a bad match by any stretch of the imagination. It was a tag team match, playa. It was Charlotte and Bayley taking on Dana Brooke and Emma. Now, a whole lot of preemptive stuff has to go in here. Hits different this week as I'm recording it because both Dana and Emma have just gotten their release. Emma, obviously, along with her partner Riddick Moss, got their release. Dana was released. She's just been back in NXT for a little bit, trying to... she's mentoring Kalani Jordan. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I don't really know. bottom line is they've both been released. It's really, really sad. So to see them as people that I've always advocated for getting a shot, Tennille Dashwood got treated like gold in Impact, and she should go back, in my opinion, because that's a thing. Dana Brooke, I said it recently in a podcast that I did about the releases. Dana Brooke is one of those ones you feel extra sad for, which is a dangerous thing to say, because anybody getting released is sad, including Matt Riddle, by the way. But, you know, everything you heard about Dana Brooke was always positive, always what a hard worker she was, always, you know, first person in, last person out, all that kind of thing. So for her to be released is a real bummer. And to underline that, on the other side of the card, you've got people that are probably never going to leave WWE in Charlotte and Bayley. I don't know why this match is happening. There's nothing on Wiki that says why this match is happening, and they don't really say on commentary, and they don't give you a video package for why this match is happening. So it takes a while. I mean, Charlotte and Bayley are baby faces, but it's like, what? Why is this match happening? I forgot. Dana Brooks, she used to do this really awesome, like, cartwheel athletic entrance thing, and when her and Emma came out, she did that, and it reminded me of that. She had a pretty decent entrance theme at the time as well. Charlotte, with her old music, I'm going to say the same thing about Charlotte that I say about Finn Balor. Charlotte, on her most recent return, came back with the slightly modified Bow Down to the Queen music, but the more, the one that she used since NXT, sort of like the upbeat version of her dad's music, is really cool. And Bayley, babyface hugger Bayley, coming out with the, what's the song called? Across the Nation, with the Bayley buddies and all that sort of thing. That's just retro. I'll steal a phrase from What Culture's Simon Miller. That's a retro feeling in your tum-tum. Let's get on with that before I realize how weird that just sounded. Before the match even starts, we get chants from the crowd, and you know, clearly, even in the modern day, you get with Samoa Joe, you get the Joe's gonna kill you, you get the KO's gonna kill you. The Bayley's gonna hug you chant. I forgot about those. Those make me smile. After a brief altercation at the very beginning of the match, there's a slingshot by Bayley into a clothesline by Charlotte, showing that they can work well in the early going, I suppose. They both do a hell of a lot of chops to what I guess are the heels. Bayley and Emma have a shoving match. There's a drop kick across into a drop kick under the bottom turnbuckle to the outside, sort of like Sami Zayn would do his crossbody through and under the bottom turnbuckle. I don't know what to call it. I don't even really know how to describe it. Obviously, Emma trips Bayley off the top rope, and she hits her head on the turnbuckle on the way down, which leads into a neck vice, which makes sense. You just snapped your neck. Let's vice your neck. I lost my place in my notes. Emma gets into the center of the ring with Bayley mocking the hugging thing, gives her a pretend hug before giving her a one-punch knockdown, which is funny. Rolling chops by Charlotte to Dana, and then she continues to toss Emma outside of the ring. Back in the ring, she manages to hit a double DDT on both Emma and Dana. Emma hits a crossbody. She rolls through into a figure 8 by Charlotte. Bayley hits the Bayley to belly on Dana, and Charlotte hits the natural selection on Emma. 3 or 4 finishers in a row there is a little bit of overkill, but the babyfaces get the win, and Charlotte and Bayley sit in the middle of the ring and do a hug and a strut. Very, very nice. What I will say, and it's one of the most minor things, and you guys know I have all kinds of little minor things that bug me way more than they should. This is the era where they were still referred to as the NXT Divas, which is a bummer, because the whole trip out of the Diva era took place on NXT, and then it sort of forced its way onto the main roster eventually. The Divas Championship, the Butterfly Belt, the Tramp Stamp Championship is something I very much associate with main roster WWE. So every time NXT used the Diva term, and yes, I know, they had the silver belt with sort of like the pink, purple-ish jeweling on it, which is fine. It was an okay looking belt. It wasn't the Butterfly. It wasn't, like I said, the Tramp Stamp Championship. But anytime I hear NXT Diva, it's just like, but that's not what they were doing at the time, was it? Anyways, like I say, what do I say about this match? Because nobody did anything bad. This is a match of 4 people that I like. There's nothing I can really critique about it other than the fact that I wasn't really given a reason to care. To steal another expression from another very well-known podcaster, it was a lot of wrestling happening in front of me. Didn't even write down the time, because I forgot. We see footage of Sami Zayn, who had recently gone to Raw to answer the John Cena United States Championship Open Challenge, and had fucked up his shoulder in the process. That's a bummer. It's a very cool thing to see, especially at the time, because you had guys like Pac as well. I mean, you should say Neville at the time, but you had Kevin Owens, who we're going to talk about later on, and Sami Zayn answering the John Cena Open Challenge, and for a lot of them, this was their first exposure onto the mainstream thing. Not that they were unknown, not that they were brand new wrestlers. Let me be perfectly clear. But for the mainstream, I just watch Raw and SmackDown WWE audience, the Fed heads, as some people say, not a bad way to make your debut, having a title shot against John Cena. Less than ideal that you did it and then you messed up your shoulder. And then they pan across the crowd once again, and this is where doing these retro shows is going to do my brain in. They introduced some of the members of the new NXT class. The new NXT class, people that we hope to see on our NXT televisions soon, and it's 5 people. One of them I didn't recognize at all, so right off the bat I'm terrible. But the other 4 were Alexander Wolf, Apollo Crews, and the Iconics. Very, very strange. Very, very weird. Obviously, I'm going to run into stuff like this if I'm doing a retro review. Hey, remember when this person was new? But very, very cool to see. Again, you go along that panel there. Apollo Crews is there now. The Iconics are currently the inspiration in Impact, I believe. I believe they're still there. One of them just had a baby with Sean Spears, so congratulations to them. Sean Spears, also formerly of this parish. Apollo Crews is athletic as hell. He's been on NXT, gone to the main roster, come back to NXT, gone back to the main roster again. In this era where TKO are making their cuts, I'm kind of worried about the guy. Alexander Wolf was in NXT, he was in Sanity. He went to NXT UK and joined Imperium for a while. That was weird. And again, it's another one of those, I don't know what he's doing now. I hope he's doing well. How about that? Baron Corbin versus Rhino. And this is another interesting one. Because you got Rhino, who's been everywhere. Rhino, obviously of ECW fame, was part of the Invasion, was on main roster WWE, has bounced back and forth to Impact, and then came back as an NXT guy. Very, very cool. Very, very, like, if you got a new big guy that you're trying to push, you put him up against Rhino, you get the two, what's the Big E thing? The 2 big meaty men slapping man meat match, for anybody that wants it. And he's taking on Baron Corbin. Baron Corbin is the old lone wolf Baron Corbin that I really liked, who was, as NXT went on to become more and more and more of what some people called a super indie, he was like the anti-indie guy. He was the guy that would scream at you like, go back to the gym, go back to the bingo hall, like that type of shit in the matches. He had a feud with Johnny Gargano, I think, that was solely based on that. More importantly than all that, though, and I know I'm going with a lot of aesthetic stuff in this review, Baron Corbin with hair looks really weird nowadays. It's like going back and looking at Triple H before he shaved his head. It's very, very strange. But he, like Finn Balor, he had the old lone wolf entrance where it was dark, it was dark, it was dark, and then you had the flare up with the lights and whatever, and you had the music that ramped up really good. They took that music and they mixed it with the royal music when he became King of the Ring on the main roster, didn't they? That was strange. No, actually they didn't. I correct myself. They mixed in the royal music with the End of Days music that he had after this one. But I really like this one because it started off with the motorcycle rev, and they didn't have to be hyper-literal like having him actually come out on a motorcycle, which was fine. The old lone wolf Corbin is great, and I think after all these years, what are we? We're in 2023 right now. This is 8 years ago. After 8 years, I think what he's doing in NXT right now is the closest thing that we've ever had, like this new sort of, I've been on the main roster, I can pass on all my knowledge to these guys down here. This new, like, burn the ships Baron Corbin is the closest we're gonna get to him finding his old lone wolf self. There's not really much to write home about in this match. Collar and elbow and a toss down by Rhino. Boots and heavy shots by both guys. They brawl on the outside. They brawl on the inside. Each guy takes a turn, throwing the other one out of the ring. Hard Irish whips by both guys, and both guys hit the turnbuckle like champs. And it's that old, like, not that they're this big, but like Big Show throws Mark Henry into the turnbuckle, and somebody on commentary says, "Oh my God, I think I saw the ring move." The ring didn't actually move. You're just accentuating a point. Every time these guys hit each other, it's loud, though, is what I'm going to say about that. Eventually, Baron Corbin gets the upper hand. There's a beatdown in the corner that goes to the point of teasing a disqualification, where the referee has to pull him off more than once. He says, "All right, I can't beat him up in the corner. I'll just put him in a neck vice instead." It's fun. Excuse me. Both men crack heads, both men trade more shots, both men, after cracking heads, decided it's a good idea to trade headbutts. Rhino hits a spine buster, Rhino hits a belly-to-belly, Rhino goes for the gore, misses, and Corbin hits what I think is still one of the coolest / simplest finishers in wrestling, the End of Days, and Baron Corbin gets the win. This Baron Corbin here, right here, this version of Baron Corbin that I liked back then, is why I'm so happy for Baron Corbin as we see him right now, sort of revitalizing himself on NXT. And that's a hard argument to make, because he went up and he did King Corbin, and he did like corporate Corbin, and then he did Happy Corbin and Broke Corbin and all these other, like, he went through a Rolodex of gimmicks. People talk about guys like Cody Rhodes, and yes, I'm biased, I don't like Cody Rhodes. I will give Cody Rhodes the credit of pulling off multiple gimmicks. He was Dashing Cody Rhodes, he was Deranged Cody Rhodes, he was Stardust eventually, and he pulled them all off. Don't get me wrong, the fact that I don't like Cody Rhodes doesn't mean I'm going to take the credit away from him for what he did. Those accolades are absolutely true, but when it comes to being able to shed a skin and put on a new gimmick and put on a new mask, so to speak, somebody that really gets underlooked in that regard is Baron Corbin. Like I say, not much to the match. Very, very much what you would expect from a Rhino match, but a very cool and key, and they even say it on commentary, a very key sort of landmark victory for the early days of who we would come to know as Baron Corbin, the Lone Wolf, and all the other things he became after that. You'll love to see it. And here's where I guess you could say we could get into the championship portion of the proceedings. And this is where I want to talk about, and I've said this on other podcasts, I'm pretty damn sure of it, NXT with TakeOver had a pretty decent pattern for the takeovers, for what made them work. I mean, initially it was because they were on TV. Initially it was because they had to fit well, depending on which one you're watching, a Wednesday, Thursday, or Tuesday time slot, so you had to fit it within the 2 hours. But even when they went to things like Brooklyn and beyond, they had a pattern for a little while that was a 5-match card. Unless there was like some little like flash Matt Riddle beats Cassius Ohno in like 5 seconds thing. That I'm not counting that. But they had a very, very, like, almost super simplistic way of laying out the pay-per-views when they were laying out what was going to be on the show, on the TakeOver, on the PLE, whatever you want to call it. It was a 5-match card. At this point, when there was only 3 titles to fight for, it was men's title, women's title, tag title, and then 2 other sort of ancillary matches. When the... Why is my phone beeping at me? Why is that a thing? When they introduced the North American Championship later on, then it was men's title, women's title, North American title, tag title, 1 ancillary match. When they incorporated the... What do you call it? The WWE United Kingdom Championship that will eventually become the NXT UK title, that became one of the matches. So then you just had 5 title matches on a card. It never really deviated from that, which was cool, because around this same time, not so much 2015, but as we got farther and farther and farther along and were attaching the takeovers to the pay-per-views, the criticism was always of the major pay-per-views that the pay-per-views were too long. WrestleMania went into like 1:30 in the morning one year, and I think that was the breaking point for a lot of people. Me, personally, I don't care. If I'm watching WrestleMania, I know I'm giving up that day. I know I'm probably taking the next day off. So that was never really a criticism for me, but it was a valid criticism from a lot of people. NXT really, really like counteracted that with these nice, tight, short, here's your bite-size bit of NXT. Now, this is obviously during the week. This is fitting the TV model. This is not having to worry about another pay-per-view being the next day. But we've now come to that sort of the halfway point of the show. It's not really the halfway point, but the non-title matches are out of the way, and even one of the ancillary matches was a number 1 contenders match. But we've got, that wasn't for a title per se. The women's tag title, or sorry, the women's tag match wasn't a title match at all. from here on in, it's tag, women's, men's, call it a day. Before we get into the Tag Team Championship match, we do cut once again to footage from Monday Night Raw, and again the John Cena United States Championship Open Challenge, but this time it was answered by Kevin Owens, but Kevin Owens wasn't there to answer the United States Open Challenge. He was there to poke fun at John Cena and make sure that John Cena didn't take credit for the injury to Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn was injured because of him, and that's his, that's his scalp, so to speak. He doesn't accept the United States Open Challenge, but he will fight John Cena, and I think he fought John Cena at the next major pay-per-view, if I'm not mistaken, but he said it wasn't for the United States Championship. He actually dropped the United States Championship and stepped on it and held the NXT Championship up, which, here's the problem with that. Kevin Owens is a heel. Obviously, he's going up against super babyface John Cena and America and all that. But if you are thinking about it from an NXT versus main roster WWE point of view, and let's be clear, Black and Gold proper, prime NXT time, it was very much NXT versus main roster. Having Kevin Owens go to the main roster and step on the United States Championship and hold the NXT title up high was a huge babyface move for Kevin Owens and for NXT fans in general. And now factor into that as well, a lot of people were getting really sick of John Cena. This was awesome. Nothing will take away from how awesome this is. At the same time, it didn't accomplish anything that I think they thought they were going to accomplish as far as keeping John Cena a babyface, making the United States Championship Open Challenge mean anything, or making Kevin Owens any more of a heel, because he stepped on a minor title, held up an NXT title, and told off John Cena. Anyways, Enzo and Cass with Carmella in their corner taking on Blake and Murphy for the NXT Tag Team Championships. Now, let's see. Once again, as I've been doing a lot, as you can see, where are all these people now? Buddy Murphy went on and had a really weird career, didn't he? He came up to the main roster. With the announcement that we've gotten recently, as I say, again, recording this in September of 2023, we just got the announcement that next year WWE is going to go do Elimination Chamber in Perth, Australia. Awesome. The WWE Super Showdown in Australia took place in, I believe, 2018. Buddy Murphy went on to win the Cruiserweight Championship in front of his own home country. That's pretty cool. He was a disciple, so to speak, of Seth Rollins, which was fun. I shouldn't say so to speak. He literally had disciple on his tights. He went on to have a not so well-advised romance storyline angle with Rey Mysterio's daughter, which wound up a lot of people. And now he is part of the House of Black in AEW, which, despite what I think about AEW, the House of Black are a pretty damn kick-ass trio. So let's hope that he and Alistair and even Brody King, maybe they come back to the good side of things someday. Blake, to the best of my knowledge, after this tag team broke up, he joined the Jackson Riker group, which was painted with a terrible brush because people don't like Jackson Riker. So, yay, guilt by association. Big Cass, or should I say Big Bill now over in AEW, went through some horrible personal stuff. Not all of it do I remember, and not all of it do I want to linger on, because good for him for getting over all of his personal stuff. He resurfaced in Impact for a little while, made a huge impact, because literally he's huge, and now he's in AEW kicking ass, taking names, and being the Diesel to Ricky Starks is Shawn Michaels, I suppose. And Enzo got fucked by the Me Too movement. Any questions? No. We got the whole Enzo speech. I love the Enzo speech, the certified G and the bona fide stud, and you can't teach that, and he's 7 foot tall, and she's hot as hell, and you can't teach it. Love all of that shit. I grew up on the New Age Outlaws. These guys were the next generation New Age Outlaws. If Big Cass hadn't had his own issues, and WWE hadn't fucked over Enzo Amore, oh yes, you could have had your next New Age Outlaws right here. Currently, once again, I'm going to address AEW again in a positive light. Probably the modern version of the New Age Outlaws, and I'm not saying this just because Billy Gunn is with them right now, is the Acclaimed. The Max Caster, Anthony Bowens call and response thing that they have is awesome. They take from this, and this took from the New Age Outlaws, so it's fine. Blake and Murphy, at the time, I came to really like Buddy Murphy over time, when he became a singles guy, when he came to the main roster, when he had that epic series of matches on Raw, when nobody else gave a shit about what was going on Raw at all. We had this for no reason, week to week to week to week series of matches between Buddy Murphy and Aleister Black that were fucking fantastic. He's better than Kenny Omega. I'm just putting that one out there. But I couldn't stand these guys. I thought they were bland as shit in NXT, and I could not stand their pulsing electro music entrance. I couldn't stand the way they did the entrance. This is me. I loved all the other entrances. This was the one. You know, NXT, the black and gold brand, the brand that holds that special place in my fan heart. They did me wrong with this one. The music gave me a headache. The way they filmed them gave me a headache. And at the time, going into this match, they didn't even have a manager to keep me interested. Now, we'll talk about that when we get to the end of it. But for now, here's these bland looking, okay, yes, they're in good shape and they can wrestle. Very nice. That means you've come out of the Performance Center. But charisma-wise, character-wise, do I give a shit-wise, they're going up against Enzo and Cass with Carmella in their corner, and all of those people are awesome. I will say, looking back with 2020 Vision, the idea of Carmelo being at ringside and Corey Graves being on commentary does make me smile just a little bit. Just a little blit. I can speak, I swear. Now, as far as why this match is happening, it's happening because 2 weeks ago, Blake and Murphy beat the shit out of Enzo and Cass backstage in front of Carmella, and it was very upsetting. I've shortened Enzo and Cass to E and C on my sheet there, so I almost said Edge and Christian. That's the kind of day we're having. Let's go, let's go. Blake and Enzo start, crossbody by Enzo and a drop kick to get everything kicking off and going. Blake and Murphy back away from Big Cass as he gets the hot tag like he's a fucking ghost. Love that. Everything I just said about Blake and Murphy, still true. The way they back away, the way they scurry back to their corner when Big Cass gets the tag and sell what a threat he is, that's awesome. I'll tip my cap to them for that. Eventually they get back in the ring, they try to give him some chops, and that fails because it's Big Cass. Big Cass starts tossing everybody around the ring. He tosses Enzo at them, which is a lot of fun. Top rope crossbody by Enzo and a hangman by Murphy. A crossface with a post by Blake. Murphy attacks the midsection. Blake eats the ring post shoulder first. An abdominal stretch on Enzo Amore. Powerbomb backstabber combination by Blake and Murphy. Wasn't the cleanest looking thing in the world, but still very nice. Enzo hit that always awkward top rope DDT thing that he did. Huge pop. Like I say, NXT, the fans came there because they wanted everything to be awesome. And now people will try to use that as a stick to beat them with. I don't think it is. If you got fans that are showing up to have a good time rather than fans that are there to be critics, you're going to have a better show. And Enzo Amore was over his shit. He hits this, the awkward top rope DDT thing. Huge how you doing chance. Makes me smile. Cass tags in and kills everybody. Boots Murphy off the apron until Big Cass kills everybody until out comes Alexa Bliss, who at this point was not associated with Blake and Murphy just yet. She attacks Carmella on the outside, which distracts Big Cass. Big Cass eats a super kick on the outside. Alexa Bliss then goes and shakes the top rope, and Enzo crotches himself, and a quick anticlimactic roll-up win for Blake and Murphy. The win isn't the story. The story is now Alexa Bliss is with them. I like Alexa Bliss. You guys have known this for a long time. I like that, you know, when she first came in and she was like the glitter glitz sparkle bliss thing that she did when she first started. I like when she came up to the main roster and she was a heel and whatever, and then she sort of slowly baby-faced as she teamed with Nikki Cross, and then all the stuff that she did with the late great Bray Wyatt was awesome. Fell under a lot of scrutiny from a lot of stupid people that don't like fun. But when she really found her groove in NXT as this absolute bitchy character who could be laughing in your face, but the eyes, the stare, the facial expressions, and all that Alexa Bliss had, and Alexa Bliss, from this day, from back in 2015 to now, is not the greatest wrestler in the world. She's not going to give you 25 stars in the Tokyo Dome, brother. But she ain't nearly as bad as what people think she is. She ain't nearly as bad as, you know, your Nia Jaxes, your Taminas, your Jade Cargills, may I say. Ridiculously underrated for reasons that I can only assume are political and social in nature. Alexa Bliss is awesome. Seeing her pop out here tonight and being reminded that this was the night that she actually officially aligned herself with Blake and Murphy to give them something to go on was good. 850, not an offensive match at all. Like I say, the fact that I'm not interested in Blake and Murphy does not mean that they are bad wrestlers. They're great wrestlers. They're better wrestlers than Enzo and Cass. But to get back to my point, Enzo and Cass, and along with Carmella and Alexa Bliss and all the other people that I care about, are drowned out by these two guys on the other side of the ring that I don't care about. Hope that makes sense. Speaking of people that I give a shit about versus other people, Becky Lynch versus Sasha Banks for the NXT Women's Championship. Now, what they had done in the past is they had sort of presented Becky Lynch as kind of like a scrappy loser, for lack of a better term. She came out, they made her do all the stereotypical Irish stuff. She came out doing jigs and whatever, and then Sasha Banks came along and manipulated the hell out of her. You need to find a killer instinct, and I'm going to help you get to the top, when really, I just need somebody popular beside me so that people will cheer when I come out. That's absolutely fine. They ended up at a previous pay-per-view, I believe it was Arrival, don't quote me, I haven't checked. They were in a Fatal 4-Way match together, and the idea was the two of them were going to double team everybody else. I can't even remember who else was in the match, but Sasha Banks was going to win. That was the plan. But Becky Lynch wants to be a champion herself. Imagine that. Imagine that. Eventually she broke away. Eventually she, lashed out. She won a triple threat between Charlotte and herself and Bayley by pinning Bayley while Bayley was in the figure 8, which is really, really clever. She gave the immortal line, which was, I thought it was corny at the time. It's still kind of corny now, but it's corny in the right way. During the contract signing, when she stared down Sasha Banks and said, "I'm not here to just take up space, I'm here to take over." At that point, the word takeover, the term takeover, had already become an NXT, cliche. But it worked in that regard, because Becky Lynch, even when she does some of the wackiest shit, if she comes out serious one day and says something, I still believe what she says. She has that type of mic presence. Ironically, she's got the same kind of thing as Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins can do the goofiest shit possible. Seth Rollins recovered from the horrible ending of Hell in the Cell 2019. 2019? Yeah. So, but he could still eventually come back out and cut a serious promo, and I would still believe what he said. Becky Lynch very much has the same thing to her. So when she stares her down and says, "I'm not just here to take up space, I'm here to take over." Yes, it's cliche in the right way. It's absolutely fine. She comes out with that music that we know now and all the steam coming up from the rampway. I will say, I've said this before in other retro reviews, they couldn't do pyro in Full Sail a lot. They had the odd exception when they had those little pyro boxes when they did the Dusty Classics and stuff like that. But for the most part, a lot of where you would typically have pyro was replaced by these big steam vent things. The same thing during the Finn Balor entrance. I didn't mention that either. But she's got all the steam coming out. She's got all the clockwork, steampunk stuff in her Tron and all that sort of thing. And she's got a very different look to her. She's got the long trench coat and the different gear and the the welding goggles and all that kind of thing. I think, because they talked about it so much on commentary, I have to assume that this night was sort of the rebranding of Becky Lynch, which is absolutely awesome. And I'm going to go to this once again. She's been on NXT recently, and she's got a t-shirt that says NBXT. On the hard cam side, if you look in the crowd, there's somebody holding up a sign that says NBXT, and the Bex part of it is in the colors of the Ireland flag. I think that's really cool. You know what else is really cool? Something that I had forgotten, something that brought a big smile to my face before the match even started, the Sasha's Ratchet chants. Oh yes, makes me smile a whole lot. Early hammerlock by Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch decided this entire match was going to be a story about Sasha Banks' arm. She was known more so for... She wasn't doing the manhandle slam back then. She was very much known for the disarmor. So everything was about the arm, and it was simplistic, but again, like I've said earlier, it's simple in the way that's good. A few early pin attempts, a victory roll by Becky gets a near fall right out of the back, and then she starts working on the arm. She's got an arm bar, she's got an arm breaker, she's got a couple rolling arm drags, a step-up thrust kick in the corner, which she still uses now. I kind of like it because it's a little bit different than the way most people do it. Face plant on the apron by Sasha turns the table. She says, anything you can do, I can do better. She does an arm wringer in the ropes. That's how you distinguish between a face and a heel. A face does an arm bar. A heel does an arm bar in the ropes. Oh, yes. Roll up near fall by Becky Lynch. A weird looking headlock that lasted for a long time by Sasha. Sasha's modified Rings of Saturn thing where she stepped on the one arm, which does look gross. It really does. And I mean gross in a good way. I'm reticent to give any credit whatsoever to Sasha Banks because I think she's a terrible person. But when she's good, I'm going to say she's good. Like where she would lock you down in the Rings of Saturn, both arms around the back, and then you would step on the exposed arm. It's a gross-looking move. It really, really is. Single arm back suplex by Becky out of the submission, and a few leg lariats to follow. Leg lariats to follow because she's now selling her arm, so she can't bother working on the arm of Sasha Banks. That's a nice little story there. We get dueling chants in the crowd. We get one for a brief second, and then it gets more positive. We get a "Let's Go Becky, Sasha Sucks" chant, which very quickly just turns into a more generic "This is wrestling" chant, which is nice. This is about the time on the main roster where you would literally get people chanting women's wrestling. And I'm not going to come up here like an SJW, but that stuff started in NXT. It really did. It's why I said earlier I cringe. When I hear the term NXT Diva, I cringe because movements like this and making the wrestling back into wrestling again happened in NXT. NXT Diva, no. I don't care if you have to go back to every takeover and edit the audio. Take out every single time that they said NXT Diva. Remember when WWF became WWE and then they went through all their old footage and they had to block out the turnbuckles and the referee shirts because they had old WWF logos on them? Do that for the word Diva in NXT. Just stop it. No. Double knees in the corner by Sasha Banks, and they brawl to the outside. Hammerlock suplex by Becky, again working the arm, followed by the Becksploder, although it wasn't called that back then. Disarmor attempt by Becky Lynch. She gets out of it. She fights her way out of it eventually. She gets to the ring ropes. Fair enough. Becky Lynch rolls to the outside. And let me say something to you right now. I don't want to see anybody get hurt ever. There's a lot of commentary I could give about whether or not Sasha Banks is a safe worker. Most of it revolves around the whole Paige Saraya situation. But Sasha goes for a suicide dive here on the ramp side. And if you've never seen this show, or if you've never seen NXT from this period of time, you had the crowd, you had the barriers, you had an upward ramp that elevated people to the entranceway that was sort of above the fans. And between that ramp and that guardrail with the fans, there was a very narrow gap. I think there was some lights. I think there was some infrastructure in the middle there. Sasha would have ended up in that gap and fucked herself up if Becky Lynch had not corrected this dive. That doesn't make her a bad person. Everybody can make a mistake. But I'm just saying it's one of those times where you see something and you see the person that made the correction, and it's the little things like that that are why I have a lot of respect for somebody like Becky Lynch. Now, a lot of other people could make that same save. I'm watching this match. She's the one in the match right now. I'm giving her the heads up for that because she redirects her cleanly back to the ramp direction. Not saying I want to see Sasha Banks get hurt. Not the point. Not the point at all. But back in the ring, bank statement, Sasha Banks gets the win at 15 minutes and 33 seconds. Great match. I'm not going to try and pretend that Sasha wasn't good in this match too. The dive was a scary spot. Happily, Becky Lynch was there to correct it. Sasha Banks wins. She poses on the ramp for an exorbitant amount of time, and then cameras pan back to the ring to give Becky Lynch the attention she deserves. She gets a huge ovation. She gets the crowd. One person does it, then 5 people do it, then 20 people do it. They're actually singing the little beginning bit of her song to her and almost chanting for her to get up. I thought that was cool. Really nice of NXT/WWE to give her that extra 30 seconds of recognition. And let me just say something to you right now. And this has nothing to do with Sasha Banks. This is just me saying something about Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch didn't win this match tonight. And that's fine. It's okay. This is very early days for everybody. Becky Lynch never got that title. Becky Lynch, this is 2015. This is 8 years ago as I'm recording this now. Becky Lynch just picked up the NXT Women's Championship last week. Let that sink in for a second. Becky Lynch, who has gone on to hold everything else. She's been the winner of the Rumble. She's been Raw Champion, SmackDown Champion. I think she's been a Tag Champion. She was one of the first 3 women to main event WrestleMania. And I mean proper main event, not main event night 1. She never got this until 2 weeks before I'm recording this. Like I say, I'm recording this on the 23rd of September, 2023. If you're listening to this way in the future. It took them 8 years to give her developmental props. That's terrible. Absolutely. And it's not even like she's there to lift up everybody else in NXT, which is awesome. Again, it builds on the respect that I have for Becky Lynch as a person and as a worker and all that kind of thing. She should be. At this point in her career, she doesn't need the NXT Women's Championship, but she never had it. And that's weird. That's really, really weird to me. When you think about the 4 horsewomen, when you think about the 4 horsewomen plus Paige, Emma, Shayna Baszler, and Asuka, and Ember Moon. Maybe those 8 or 9 women that maybe gave the NXT women's division its identity. And Becky Lynch never held that belt. I'm not sitting here crying a river because she didn't win this particular match just because she was facing Sasha Banks, who I don't like. But the fact that she never won that title until this year, 2023, is absolutely outrageous. That's all I got. I'm going to cheer myself up for the main event. And what a main event we got. Before, there was Gargano versus Ciampa, which I personally think is one of the best long-standing feuds in the history of like good proper NXT. But before that, we had Sami Zayn versus Kevin Owens. Quick history on how we got to here. This is the second match between the two of these guys. Sami Zayn had won the title on the same takeover that Kevin Owens had debuted on. He debuted against... I can't think about what his name was in NXT, but it's Juice Robinson. He was in the opening match of that card. It was his first ever pay-per-view. They made a big deal in the back about the two of them hanging out. Sami Zayn was so happy that his buddy was here. His buddy beat, it was CJ something. He was doing like the environmentalist gimmick. But he busted up in his own nose in that match against Juice Robinson in the opening match. And in the main event, Sami Zayn had won the championship. And off the top of my head, I can't even remember who he won the championship off of. But it was when everybody poured into the ring, everybody celebrated with Sami Zayn. Kevin Owens came out to hug his friend. And then Russo Swerve, grabbed him on the rampway, threw him down to the ground, and then powerbombed him on the apron edge. I personally had not seen that spot before when that happened back in the day, so I thought it was pretty fucking gnarly. Sorry. At the next pay-per-view, Kevin Owens obviously fought Sami Zayn. He bragged about how he had only been in the company 2 months and he was already getting a world title shot. He beat the shit out of Sami Zayn to the point where he won the championship by referee's decision. In the promo leading up to this, there's various splices of various interviews that he did with Graves, with Michael Cole, with somebody else, talking about, like, basically he's pissed off. Everybody's talking about Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn, like, fucked off after I beat him, and then he went and tried to challenge John Cena and says he got injured in the John Cena match, when no, you're not going to give John Cena the credit for injuring Sami Zayn. That was me. I want the credit, etc. This is where we're getting into the crux of the Kevin Owens character at the time, that was the prize fighter. He could justify anything that he was doing because it was all to get his hands on the prize. It was all to support his family. And his last words in the promo to Sami Zayn were, "I know exactly how I hurt you, and I plan on doing it again." So, more or less, it's a bit of a wrestling staple, but I'm not coming tonight to win a match. I'm coming tonight to make sure you don't ever have a match again. Sami Zayn versus Kevin Owens 2 for the NXT Championship is your main event for NXT Unstoppable. I'm going to say it before. Sorry, I have said it before. I'm going to say it now. I'll probably say it again. This version, the initial version of the NXT Championship, is not my favorite design at all. it looks boxy. It looks like I know it's an X, and they're trying to build it around the X, and they're trying to get away from what WWE had done, where all the belts were like these circular plates, and they were all kind of interchangeable, kind of like today. But it being an X just makes it look like a square because of how the belt has to be, and because you don't want anybody to stab themselves if they're wearing it on the edge of an X. What I will say is the immediate version of this belt after this one, there was the pay-per-view. I don't remember which one it was, but I'm sure we'll cover it, where after every title match, they handed whoever the winner was the newer versions of the belts. I think Bobby Roode was involved, if I'm not mistaken. That's my favorite version of the title. I don't like what they did to them in more recent times. Yes, I know it was in keeping with the NXT 2.0 idea, where all the black and gold got replaced by colorful rainbow farts and magic and whatever, but they just made them into rainbow pieces of nonsense. But yeah, not my favorite version of the belt. What I do like is, because Kevin Owens separately is going to be going on to Elimination Chamber later on this month. I think I've got my dates correct. He's going to be going on to Elimination Chamber to fight John Cena, getting some exposure for the NXT brand on a WWE pay-per-view, which I think is awesome. Also, it's because they saw the star power they had in Kevin Owens, didn't they? But he had one of those John Cena shirts, you know, the ones that always said the champ is here with the arrow pointing down, and whatever title John Cena had at the time. Currently it was the US Championship. But when Kevin Owens put the belt on, or when he held the belt against his chest, he said the champ is here, pointing to the NXT Championship, which meant it was him, which was awesome. Kind of like when they wouldn't let Bayley wear the WWE Championship properly because the letters on her gear plus the W of the belt said AEW. That was a strange time to live in, wasn't it? And I'm not even an AEW fan. Kevin Owens is out on the rampway trying to avoid Sami Zayn, so Sami Zayn starts off the match with a Superman forearm off the stairs, and they brawl to the outside, and it's a brawl for a long time. Clotheslines out of the ring by Zayn, backdrops Owens onto the floor. Kevin Owens eats the steps on the outside. They brawl out into the fans, and then he backdrops Owens back over the rail, back to ringside. Blue Thunder Bomb once they get back into the ring. And yes, Kevin Owens is a bigger guy. Sami Zayn's a smaller guy. I'm a bigger guy. I'm not making fun of big guys, but Sami Zayn getting the Blue Thunder Bomb on somebody like Kevin Owens is pretty fucking impressive looking, even back then. Follows up with a Dragon Suplex and a near fall. I don't know whether it was a Dragon Suplex or a half and half suplex. I might have written that down wrong. For the near fall. He runs the ropes for a DDT, but Kevin Owens counters it into a backbreaker. Think about how long they've known each other. They've talked about the 12 years they spent first breaking into the business together. Of course, he's going to counter that DDT into a backbreaker, and it builds into the whole, I'm going to break you like I broke you before, following a backbreaker. Kevin Owens misses a cannonball, and Sami Zayn hits an exploder suplex into the corner, which it still is his signature, but really back then that exploder in the corner got a pop. Capture suplex on the floor by Zayn, but when he runs at KO for a second time, he hits him with a pop-up powerbomb. Not only a pop-up powerbomb, but a powerbomb on the apron edge once again. And Sami Zayn goes down like a limp fucking noodle. And I think the match is basically called off at that point. I could be wrong. Because the time says 13 minutes flat on Wikipedia. I'm cheating. I'm looking at Wikipedia. Yeah, I know. But I don't know whether that's, I don't know what that is. I don't know when exactly they consider it because there's never a bell. All you see is referees coming down to pull Kevin Owens off. They did it 3 different times. They pulled him off. He jumped back in again. He pulled him off. Let him jump back in. But he pulled them off. And he comes back and he kicks Sami Zayn in the head, which when he already kind of is half acting unconscious, is really nasty to look at. While all this is going on, while their hero is getting murdered, the crowd in Full Sail, NXT crowd that I love, is chanting, "Let them fight." The medical staff try to work on Sami Zayn, and Kevin Owens picks him up and chucks him into the steps. You'll love it. Kevin Owens drags him into the ring by the head, and more people, more security officials, etc., try to break it up. Regal comes out and gets in Kevin Owens' face. He ignores him. He goes back to beating Sami Zayn. Regal rakes the face of Kevin. I fucking love William Regal. He looks like the dirtiest fighter in the world, and yet you kind of want to be his friend too. Rakes the face of Kevin Owens to get him off of Sami Zayn. He responds with a headbutt. He goes out to the outside. He goes to get a steel chair. He raises the steel chair above Sami Zayn, about to crash, about to finish his job, about to finish the story, somebody like Cody Rhodes might say. But he's going to finish off. He's going to do what he said in his promo. He's going to do what it said on the tin, so to speak. He's going to finish Sami Zayn completely. But then you hear new music. Music that we had never, ever heard before. And the crowd goes fucking crazy for the surprise entrance of Samoa fucking Joe. Immediate. It didn't even take like one person telling the next person, oh my god, that's Samoa Joe. Everybody knows who the fuck Samoa Joe is. Immediate Joe's gonna kill you chance. They come face to face, and it's like, it's the Big E Langston, big meaty men slapping man meat, but also they're two really evil dudes as well. Holy shit chance abound. KO bails, basically. He comes back out to the ring, really like breaking that Street Fighter, the prize fighter gimmick. It's like, hey, he's looking at his title and he's looking at Samoa Joe. Like, oh, I've escaped with my title, but that would be a really good brawl as well. And eventually he fucks off again. Samoa Joe, being the unannounced person, being the one that nobody knew was even going to be there, standing triumphant in the ring after staring down the current NXT champion while Sami Zayn lays beaten at his feet, getting seen to by officials. This was cool for a lot of reasons. I hated his music. I hated the music that he first had, because he had that like the chanting bit, and then it went into this like sort of bebopping kind of beat that didn't really fit Samoa Joe. They fixed that soon afterwards, but I forgot that for like a week or so he had this really like almost upbeat kind of jivey beat bopping kind of entrance, and I didn't like it at all. The one he got after they fixed it is kind of similar to what he's got in AEW now. Kudos to him, by the way, for being in AEW but being the ROH champion in AEW and not quite winning the AEW championship. Samoa Joe's a beast. I don't care. I watched Samoa Joe like change what it meant to be a cruiserweight that's not really a cruiserweight when he was the biggest portion of the X Division over in TNA, back when Impact was TNA. Really, really cool to see him. Really, really cool to be immediately presented with the idea of Kevin Owens and Samoa Joe slapping 10 bells out of each other. Also, and yeah, this was a big thing at the time, I think he was one of the first ones that got to come to WWE and keep his name. I think he was. Sami Zayn used to be El Generico. Becky Lynch used to be Rebecca Quinn, or is Rebecca Quinn in real life. Kevin Owens was Kevin Steen. Finn Balor that we talked about earlier on the night was Fergal Devitt, and then he was Prince Devitt, and now we have Prince Balor, which is fine. At the time, I don't know if it was the first, but I remember at the time it felt like the first person that got to come to WWE and not immediately have a WWE label slapped on them, if that makes sense. Really, really cool. Like I say, another step in the Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens rivalry back then. Like I say, flash forward 8 years to earlier this year, and they were main eventing night one of WrestleMania and beating probably one of the best tag teams in history in the Usos for the tag team championship. So that's a hell of a thing to look back on now. And it's really weird now when you see, scruffy, shaggy, love and life Sami Zayn. Back in the day, seeing him with the short hair, the short beard, actually wrestling in tights instead of pants and a t-shirt. It's all the weird, stupid little aesthetic things that don't really matter, but I get a lot out of when I'm doing these reviews. The show overall was a lot of fun. The number one contenders match was awesome. Great retro vibes for me with the original Balor entrance and whatever. The women's championship match, despite one of the competitors being Sasha Banks, was an awesome match. Really, first step on the upswing for somebody like a Becky Lynch. The tag team title match was what it was. The world title match wasn't a match. It didn't really have an ending. It's listed on Wikipedia as a no contest, but really it served to forward the story of Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. And if you want to put aside the one that I think is the best, which is Gargano versus Ciampa, this is one of the best rivalries in NXT, and you used it to introduce Samoa Joe as well. Now, there was some flabby fat in the middle of this that I could have done without. Corbin and Rhino was a lot of fun. Nice little stepping stone match for Corbin. Did it have to be on the pay-per-view? No. The women's tag match, I like Bayley. I like Charlotte. Especially right now, I got a lot of sympathy for Dana Brooke and Emma, but that match had no reason to be, so it really had no reason to be on the card. The show isn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but the stuff that was supposed to be important hit as important as it was supposed to be. That's about it. That's all I got. What memories do you have of NXT TakeOver Unstoppable? Do you like me coming back and doing these again, resurrecting this series from the COVID days? Let me know down in the box below. Ultimately, it's your guys' feedback that will let me know if I want to keep doing this or not. I think it's a lot of fun. I've had to do a bit of editing. There's more than one part to this, so if that becomes super obvious in the editing, because I'm not great at editing, sorry about that. Thanks for your time. Hope you liked it. I've been Spaz, your YWC Reality Check. Subscribe up there, talk down there, start a conversation. Keep all these conversations going. Don't be a stranger. I'll talk to each and every last one of you later, but for right now, I am tagging out. Bye, guys.